Welcome back, adventurer. Today's creature has been described as a big bad wolf that shoots fire from its eyes. Now if that's got you squeezing a bag of pigs, then come, pull up a stool at Creature Tavern. Adventurer, you've come at just the worst time. Aye, all me taps are out. All except one, of course. Me tap of tails. Here, take a sitting utensil, and I'll pour you a mega pint of lore on the Kludde from Dutch and Belgian folklore. The Kludde is known by many names. The Kleur, the Clare, or Water Kludde, and its appearances are just as varied. I've spent many nights listening to patrons and adventurers share their encounters, each more bizarre than the last. Some swear it's a demonic water hound, others insist it's a shape-shifting demon, capable of taking countless forms. One woman painted a curious image of a man wreathed in dog skin, while a grizzled-looking wanderer swore on his mother's soul that he'd seen the Kludde as a bearded man with a great fishtail. Still, others have described it as a man with goat hooves, or a twisted figure with the head of a dog. Some claim it carries two eerie blue flames that hover around its head. Whether as spectral eyes or a mere decoration, no one can say. And of course, there are those who dismiss all speculation and simply call it what they believe to be a werewolf, or perhaps the devil himself. But after following every lead and piecing together the most persistent accounts, one description stands out above all. The Kludde is called a tormentor, and the form it seems to favour is that of a monstrous black wolf, towering upright on its hind legs, with bat-like wings sprouting out its back, and clad in glistening green scales. And if that alone isn't warning enough, listen for the sound of a rattling chain, usually dragging from its left ankle. But by the time you hear that, the Kludde will have already marked you as its next victim. Now if you thought the appearance of the Kludde was wild, dear adventurer, wait till you hear of its origins. These stretch back deep into the 18th century. The legends speak of a decaying cottage that stood in the forests just outside the small village of Ternat. No one could tell me where the cottage came from, or how long it had stood. Only that a witch, as ghastly as the devil, resided within. The villagers knew the witch consorted with dark spirits, often inviting the damned in, and unsurprisingly, they weren't the biggest fans of this. So the villagers banded together to discuss ways they could remove the witch before the evil leaked out and into the surrounding village streets. But this didn't go exactly to plan, as every single one of the villagers were too scared to act, afraid they'd end up joining the damned souls within this little, timeless cottage. But as luck would have it, a storm like no other began to roll over the land, consuming the village and surrounding forests, and in the swirling chaos, a stray bolt of lightning struck the cottage, burning it and all its inhabitants to the ground. For the longest time, no villager dared disturb the charred remains, for fear dark magic had leaked into the earth. Till one day, a landowner, as foolish as he was wealthy, sent workers over to clear the land. And as soon as the very first shovel grazed the witch's corpse, the ground shook and the sky roared. The burned corpse violently cracked open, and a small, ash-covered man climbed out. Within moments, accounts of that day say he grew to an unnatural height. His body contorted, and his screams mutated into growls. His face lengthened into a wolf's snout, his legs snapped back and bent into that of a dog's, and claws jutted out from his hands and feet. The Kludde was born. How's that for an origin story? If you're still with me, adventurer, I have a little more on this weird little ash baby, like how the Kludde enjoys haunting lonely places, specifically hollow trees or the shadows under bridges. It's most often found in the Skelt region, like Dendermonde, where it lives in the Dender, Antwerp and the Zenner marshes. The villagers of East Flanders and Flemish Brabant whisper of its presence in their forests and fields. Locals, they tell me, the Kludde prowls roads that cut through abandoned farmlands, like those between Dilbeek, Zemst and Zemstlaar, and it's said to be especially treacherous in the municipality of Wikluden. There exists a path named Kludde Pad, a reminder of the beast's long-standing presence in this region, and these people know better than to walk certain paths alone. Even in the areas around Antwerp, such as Heemixem and Skelle, there are rumours of the Kludde. The beast does not confine itself to land alone. Many residents say it's bound to water, emerging from the depths only to satisfy its dark desires. So beware, adventurer, as the Kludde's drawn to isolated roads and those who walk them alone. Whether in the depths of Dendra or hidden in the marshes of Zemst, the Kludde is always watching, in one form or another. So after all that, I bet you're thinking the Kludde's some evil, deadly predator. It certainly gives the impression. But it turns out, the shape-shifting monster dog, its motivations often seem to be driven by an inherent desire to have a laugh at your expense. So the Kludde is a trickster, a master of deception, and a creature of many faces. I did my best to track down every account I could, just for you, adventurer, and here's the full list of what this thing can become. Human, cat, bird, wolf, horse, malnourished horse, snake, frog, bat, sheep, a white-haired dog, a red-haired dog, rabbit, pig, woman, and believe it or not, tree. And if that wasn't enough, some old scrolls even claim the Kludde can command the wind and control water. Talk about overachiever. So what kind of mischief does it get up to? Just the other day, a fella stormed in here, dripping wet and cursing the Kludde to the depths of hell. Said he was out adventuring when he came across a strangely well-kept horse. Swore up and down that the horse invited him to ride. And well, what would you do if a polite horse offered you a lift? He hopped on, of course. Next thing he knew, the horse had took off like a bat out of the underworld, galloped straight to a lake, and flung him headfast into the water. As he bobbed about, gasping for air, he swears he saw that horse roll over onto its back, kicking its legs in the air and howling with laughter. But by the time he dragged himself ashore, he had gone. Completely vanished. And that's just one trick in the Kludde's book. Ever hear of a tree growing so tall its branches disappear into the clouds? Well, more than a few wanderers claim they have. Watch the tiny sapling shoot up in seconds, stretched impossibly high. Then from somewhere above the clouds, they always hear it. Laughter. The Kludde, no doubt watching them gawk. And it could just as easily have been a stray cat before that, one with big, pitiful eyes that make you want to scoop it up, only for it to explode into a monstrous size, right in your arms. And you see that farmer over there? Aye, the one nursing his ale in the corner. He'll tell you about this bird. Great ugly thing. Kept flying over his farm every night at exactly 2 a.m. Screeching its own name. Kludde, Kludde, Kludde. Until every last beast in the barn was spooked out its wits. Seems the Kludde likes being known. It wants you to know it's there. It wants a laugh. And always, always, at someone else's expense. But its most famous game? That'd be the piggyback ride. If you ever find yourself walking alone at night, especially after a few drinks, and you hear the sound of chains rattling behind you, you better bolt. Not that it'll help much. No matter how fast you go, the chains will always keep pace, dragging just behind you, And the moment you turn to look, bam! The Kludde's on your back. Not attacking you, not clawing, just clinging. And it won't let go. It'll stay there, wrapped around you, growing heavier and heavier until the first rays of dawn break, or you cross the threshold of your home. Then just like that, it vanishes. That's of course unless you're in Breendock. There, the game has a deadlier twist. As the Kludde sits there on your back, growing heavier and heavier, it'll begin pressing down with an unnatural weight until you're crushed dead. So if you're planning a trip through Breendock, best keep your wits about you. And the Kludde's pranks don't end there. You could fall victim without even coming into contact with the beast. I found many tomes that speak of a curious ability Kluddes have, apparently. Simply being in the presence of a Kludde can cause milk and butter to turn rancid. I couldn't find much to say if this extends to other dairy products, so I'd appreciate it if you take this yogurt out with you, should you go in search of a Kludde adventurer. And you know what? You can even keep it, should it turn foul, of course. Their presence is also capable of making cows and horses infertile. Just please don't ask me how I found this one out. Most folk, they'll tell you the Kludde is just a prankster. A menace that enjoys scaring drunks and laughing at their screams. But not everyone agrees. A few stories paint it as something far, far darker. There's talk of Kluddes that have slaughtered entire stables of horses in the dead of night. And worse still, tales of lone women walking through the forests only to be taken and never seen again. But you know what's truly sinister? The way it breaks a person's mind. You see, the Kludde has a talent. Perhaps its most dangerous of all. It can choose a target and make itself invisible to everyone but them. Imagine that. You're out with your friends when suddenly, there it is. Following you. Stalking you. Never attacking, never too close, just watching from a distance. Day and night. When you scream for help, when you beg your friends to tell you they can see it too, the Kludde just laughs. That deep, mocking laugh that only you can hear. And it won't stop. Not until you've lost every shred of sanity you had left. And then, when you've finally snapped, when you're rocking back and forth, eyes wild, muttering to yourself, it'll simply disappear with a final chuckle on the wind. Now losing your marbles is bad, but not as bad as another record I found. There was this old journal I dug up, brittle dust-covered thing, that told of a few unlucky folks who actually managed to pin a Kludde against a wall. Unsurprisingly, the Kludde didn't seem to care at all. It just perked up its eyes, began to stare down the man restraining him, and shot fire from its eyes, obviously immediately killing the man. Now I'm sure an adventurer as brave as yourself isn't scared off by all that, so if you take me up on my little dairy experiment, here's what you'll need to know in order to avoid being the butt of one of the Kludde's jokes. If you're out on a walk and you hear that unmistakable metal jingle, just keep walking. As the faster you run, the faster the Kludde will chase you. Its inhuman speed and stamina make it the best long-distance runner. And typically, the Kludde prefers the night. I suppose it's easier to prank under the cover of night, so keep that in your back pocket, adventurer. Use the daylight. This one pops up a lot when dealing with the supernatural, and it's no different for the Kludde. I guess when you spawn from the corpse of a devil-dealing witch, you're bound to have a bad relationship with the gods. So bring holy water, and don't be afraid to pray. I can't say this will definitely work, but it probably won't make things worse. And don't bother trying to restrain the creature. If the story of the man with charred holes for eyes wasn't enough, every other record I found of people trying to capture this beast said it was like trying to grab smoke. Smoke so hot it scorched the flesh from their hands. So please, adventurer, don't try to capture it. Don't try to hug this beast. You're only going to hurt yourself. If you're returning from an adventure and your home's in sight, then I disregard what I said earlier and run immediately. Once you're across the threshold, you'll be safe. The Kludde, much like the common vampire, cannot cross this barrier. If it tries, poof, it'll turn into smoke. And here's a twofer. I had a lovely lady from Weakerland stop by. She told me of the time a Kludde hopped on her back, and in an attempt to shake the creature off, she ended up shoving a cloth in its mouth. That failed, obviously, but the following morning, she noticed a man with the same cloth fibres hanging from his teeth. This allowed her, and some other villagers, to deal with the Kludde in its far less threatening human form. But if you don't fancy sticking your hands in a giant wolf mouth, you could simply throw your handkerchief in the air. This will cause the Kludde to hop off you immediately, as it's compelled to rip the fabric apart, fibre by fibre, and it might just afford you those few key moments to get home. And it never hurts to have a little silver, and if it doesn't work on the Kludde, maybe spend it at your local tavern. And with that, we're finished with our creature for the day. We've learned to never leave home without a hanky, lest you end up pancake for a wolf. Now that bell means it's last call here at Creature Tavern, so grab yourself one more drink for the road, and until next time, tread carefully, adventurer. You never know when you might wander into the weird